Aloha kako. Welcome to the National Museum of the American Indian. My name is Melissa Bazzani. I am the film programmer here, and I'm helping this weekend with public programs. How many of you have been here before? Okay, you didn't even know what I was going to ask. For Celebrate Hawaii, how many of you have been here? Great, great. And how many of you have been here otherwise? Well, thank you for coming back. Though we're celebrating Hawaii today, I do want to stop for a moment and for everyone that works here, acknowledge the ancestral caretakers of this place, the Piscataway people and their relatives, many of whom still live here in Washington, D.C. And though we are celebrating Hawaii this weekend, I would encourage you, if you haven't already checked it out, on the second floor in front of the elevators, we have a small exhibit called Return to a Native Place. And that teaches you a little bit about the Native communities of the Washington, D.C. area. So go check it out. It's really eye-opening. You are in here for a lecture. Do you know that? I hope so. No keiki dancing. Lecture. By Manu Boyd, who has come all the way from Hawaii to celebrate with us today. His lecture is He Hoʻohiwahiwa no Paiʻea Kamehameha, a tribute to the honor King Kamehameha I. So I present to you Manu Boyd.
Aloha kākou. Aloha kākou. My name is Manu Boyd. I am from Oahu in Hawaii, the third largest island. We're talking today about Kamehameha I. That is the theme of our whole Hawaii festival here at the National Museum of the American Indian. So I'll be talking for about 30 minutes, 35 minutes or so, and then we'll have some time for questions and answers. But Kamehameha is such a conspicuous name in Hawaiian history, in Polynesian history, and really in world history. So we're going to be talking about what he did throughout his life to fulfill his destiny that was prophesied at his birth, that he would be a warrior chief, and ali'i nui, a great chief, a ruling chief that would unite all the islands under a single rule. That was also done in prediction that there would be a big wave of change that would overtake Hawaii, almost like the big fish eating the little fish kind of thing. And so I think in reality, what was prophesied was that there would be a Western intervention in Hawaii, and Hawaii would be more effective and stronger and much more cohesive as a single unit under single rule. So in traditional times, if we look at the 8 major Hawaiian islands, and so if you're looking at our imaginary map up here, we have in the east, we have Hawaii Island. And so Hawaii Island is the largest in the chain of the 8 major islands. In traditional times, the chief, and each of them had, throughout the generations, had a single chief or ruler that was associated with that island because they lived during the reign of that particular ali'i. Life was good, life was prosperous, lots of food for the people, times of peace and harmony. So Hawaii Island is associated with a chief, Keawe I Kekahi Ali'i o Kamoku, and he was actually one of the great grandfathers of King Kamehameha I. So Hawaii Island is often referred to as Moku o Keawe, or Island of Chief Keawe. The next largest in size is the island of Maui, and a couple of ancient chiefs of Maui are Kamalala Valu. So sometimes you hear Maui Nui a Kama, Great Maui of Chief Kamalala Valu. You also hear Maui or Piʻilani, and Piʻilani, an ancient king of Maui. Lanai is a small island in more modern times known as the Pineapple Island. It was planted by Dole planters for many, many decades and became a producer of pineapple. But in ancient times, the ali'i, or the chief that was associated with that island, was Kaulula'au. So La Na'i o Kaulula'au. We have the island of Kaho'olawe, which for the most part was uninhabited. It was a fishing area and an area for canoe launching, also on long voyages. Kaho'olawe is not associated with a chief, but rather a god, and the god Kanaloa, the god of the ocean. So Kaho'olawe a Kanaloa, Kaho'olawe the child of Kanaloa. Molokai, which is known as the Friendly Isle today, was associated with its supernatural mother, the goddess of the moon, whose name was Hina. So great Molokai, child of Hina. Molokai Nui a Hina is that reference. For the island that I come from, how many of you have been to Oahu before? Most people who go to Hawaii go to Oahu. Third largest of all the islands. The ancient chief who ruled in the late 15th century, early 16th century was named Kakuhihewa. So we hear Oahu o Kakuhihewa, the island of Oahu of great chief Kakuhihewa. Now you go across the very tumultuous, very rough Ka'ia'i'a Channel, heading further to the west. You get to the island of Kauai, and the ancient chief of Kauai is Mano Kalanipo. So Kauai o Mano Kalanipo, Kauai of the chief Mano Kalanipo, and always connected to Kauai politically is the island of Ni'ihau, and Ni'ihau's chief is Kahelelani. So all of these from, again, the 8 islands, Hawaii, Maui, Molokai, Lanai, Kaho'olawe, Oahu, Kauai, and Ni'ihau, all of them have affiliation with someone bigger than them, either a chief or a god, in the cases of Molokai and Kaho'olawe. So Kamehameha, when he becomes recognized in the world as a chief who would eventually unify the islands, really had quite a daunting task ahead of him. Again, in the face of change that was predicted long before the coming of Westerners to the Hawaiian Islands. So Kamehameha Paiʻea is born in about 1758, and there are different guesses on his birth date that go all the way back to 1736, and it has to do with genealogical generations and the chiefly names that preceded him or that were predicted to have been during the time of his birth. But we're going to use the year 1758. I think it's a reasonable guess. That would be 20 years before the arrival of Captain James Cook, which was in 1778. And I know you folks can all do math. So 1758 plus 20 equals 1778. And so one of the clues that kind of bring us to that date of 1758 is that in one of Kamehameha's birth chants, or Mele Hanau, there is reference to what sounds like Halley's Comet. It's a very, very special, unusual Hoku Velo Velo. And Hoku in Hawaiian is a star, Velo Velo is streaming. So a star with a long tail that was prominent in the night sky for months during the time of Kamehameha's birth. And so Halley's Comet also was visible in the Earth's atmosphere in 1758. Also, when Captain James Cook is here in 1778 and 1779, before his being killed at Kealakekua, Kamehameha, the young chief, is described as being a warrior of about 20 years old. And he was befriended by Captain Cook. He actually went on Captain Cook's ship, the Discovery, and went to Holo Holo, or went to go out to sea a bit, and was brought back to show the young ali'i and other young nobility the technology of the Western ships, which really played an important part in Kamehameha's life further on. Kamehameha really embraced technology. He, from that young age of 20 in 1758, he was really able to see for 41 years of his life until his passing 200 years ago in 1819. 41 years of Western influence on Hawaii. By the time Kamehameha dies in 1819, he was somewhat fluent in English. He could speak a little German and a little French, but he really didn't have to because those who came to Hawaii in the early years, the explorers, the traders, and eventually the merchants and basically settlers into Hawaii really had to learn to speak Hawaiian. That was Olelo Hawaii, which is the word for the term, the phrase for Hawaiian language, was the language of commerce in Hawaii all the way through the kingdom period. So while other languages were present here in Hawaii, really everyone who came to Hawaii had to learn to speak Hawaiian. And that's a really important thing to recognize this year in particular, as 2019 is the year of the indigenous languages worldwide. So just on a sidebar note on that, Hawaiian language which was not long after the overthrow in 1893, the establishment of the Republic of Hawaii, which was really under the thumb of America. Hawaiian language was outlawed, was banned in schools in particular, could not be used as a means of teaching. So Hawaiian went underground. Many of our grandparents, great-grandparents were forbidden from speaking Hawaiian by their own families, and the idea was if you're going to get ahead in the world, you have to learn to speak English and speak it well. So years later, the Hawaiian language has made such a strong comeback, and that really is a tribute, I think, to the mana, or the power, the spiritual power of our ancestors. So we go back now to the time of Kamehameha, and let's go back to the time of his birth. So he was born, again, on our imaginary map here. This is my very easy PowerPoint, didn't take any effort whatsoever. But we go back to the island of Hawaii, the largest of the 8 major islands, and the northern district of Hawaii is Kohala. Let's all say Kohala. Kohala, maikai. Maikai means good or well done. We go down to the district on the southeast of Kohala, and the district is Hamakua. Let's all say that. Hamakua, maikai. And then we go further south, and the eastern end of Hawaii, the district of Hilo. Let's all say Hilo. Okay, and then south of Hilo is a district that gets us towards the volcano area, the district of Puna. Let's all say Puna. Good. And the southernmost district of Hawaii Island is Ka'u. Let's all say Ka'u. Good. Coming up, now we're going up on the western side of the West Hawaii, a place with those of you who have been to Hawaii Island. Anybody here been to Hawaii Island? You probably went to Kona. And Kona, let's all say Kona. Kona literally means leeward. So leeward is Kona, Ko'olau is windward. In southern Polynesia, it's Tonga and Tokelau, the equivalent of Kona and Ko'olau. But that district, well known as Kona still today, is there. Above Kona, we get up to Kohala. So Kohala, right back to the birthplace of Kamehameha the Great. So there at the northern part of the island in 1758, it was said to have been a stormy, rainy night when he was born. He was born at an area near Mo'okini Heiau, which is a traditional temple, the oldest in Hawaii, that was built by High Chief Pa'ao, who is said to have come from Upolu in Samoa. So that northern tip of Hawaii is also named Upolu, commemorating the home base or the homeland of that kahuna, that Chief Pa'ao. So he's born there on a rainy night, and it's because of the prediction of his being the child of high-born status, of high rank, that he was coveted from the beginning. I mean, there was jealousy that was brewing in the minds of the Ali'i rulers of that time, and the king of Hawaii Island was Alapa'i. And so it is said that they were waiting for his mother, and her name was Keku'iapoiwa. Keku'iapoiwa to give birth, and that child would be taken away and killed to prevent him from fulfilling the destiny that was prophesied. And so because it was a dark, stormy night, it was not predicted, it was not thought that Keku'iapoiwa would give birth then, but she did. And it said that after she gives birth to this child, and the child is said to be a po'olua child. It has 2 acknowledged fathers. Now, in our Western way of thinking, some of the practices in ancient Hawaii are kind of mind-boggling. The idea of recognizing two fathers because they had relations with the mother around the same time. One of them was a high chief of Kohala, and his name was Kalani Kupuapa'i Kalani Nui Keoua. And the second was a son of the king of Maui, the king Kekaulike, his son Kahekili. And so in any case, this child, and when you are deemed a po'olua child, it means you're going to also inherit the mana, or the spiritual power, as well as the genealogy of both of them. So the two of them, plus the mother, high-ranking ali'i in her own right, this child really was going to be of high rank, but not the highest ranking of ali'i. And this child would be eventually named, among other names, but Paiʻea Kamehameha. Paiʻea is an animal that crawls on the rocks. It's a kind of a black crab. And for those of the many Hawaiians in the audience today, we're familiar with a'ama, black crabs, with alamihi, black crabs, but Paiʻea, another one, and named for that to instill or to promote or to inspire agility, that this warrior would be able to move very quickly and strategically throughout the land in his efforts of warfare. The name Kamehameha, which literally means the lonely one. Let's all say the word meha meha. Say that? Meha meha. Meha meha means lonely, and ka is an article meaning the. So Kamehameha, let's all say that. Kamehameha. You kind of get right past the ka. It's not Kamehameha, just Kamehameha. And that is his name, named for an uncle of his from Maui named Kamehameha Nui. So on that stormy night in Kohala, the wind is blowing, and the apapa'a wind of Kohala is very gusty, and the darkness and the rainfall. So Kekuiapoiwa gives birth to this child, and he's wrapped in kapa immediately and passed through a hole in the halepili to the warrior chief who was expecting to take him and run and hide him far from Alapa'i, the jealous king, who had intended to kill this child at birth. And so Naiole takes him from Kokoiki by Mo'okini Heiau, which is down at the Mahu Kona, Hawi, Kohala, coming up to Kapa'au, and then they go past further north in Kohala to Halava, to Niuli'i, to Waiapuka. They get to the end of the road there, which is the end of the road today, which is Pololu Valley, through Pololu Valley to Honokane Nui, Honokane Iki, and to this ridge way to the south of Kohala in the direction of Waipio Valley, a place called Avini. And Avini is where that young Kamehameha was hidden for years and began his training. Kamehameha's trainer from a young child in athletics, in body strength building, in warfare in general, was a high chief named Keku Haupio. So for those of you who are familiar, who may have gone to Kamehameha schools on Oahu, Keku Haupio is the name of the gymnasium at Kamehameha schools because that was the trainer of the warrior king Kamehameha the Great. So eventually, Alapa'i really welcomes Kamehameha into the royal court because he is of high rank, and Alapa'i is succeeded by his relative Kalani Opu'u. So I mentioned there's a lot of names in here, but there's not going to be a quiz after, so we don't have to remember them. But when we talk about our Hawaiian ali'i, we have to mention the names of their family. So his father, and the direction of the two acknowledged fathers, is Keoua. Keoua's brother, Kalani Opu'u, was the ruler then of the island of Hawaii, and he was the king during the reign of Kamehameha I, during the arrival of Captain James Cook in 1778, when Kamehameha was how old? 20. You guys are really good. That's really good. I guess they teach math up here as well as they do at home at Kamehameha schools. And so Kalani Opu'u is the king. Kalani Opu'u embraces Kamehameha also. That's his nephew. Kalani Opu'u has his own children, And among them are Ki Vala'o and Keokuahu'ula, and they're going to figure prominently in Kamehameha's story. So when Kalaniʻopuʻu is about to die, I guess he's ill, it's very apparent that his life is going to end shortly, he gives two inheritances to his son and to his nephew. To his son, Ki Vala'o, he gives the entire island of Hawaii. Again, all of the islands ruled separately. Hawaii is its own kingdom under Kalaniʻopuʻu. So his son receives control over the whole island. But to his nephew, he gives the war god Kuka'ilimoku. So what do you think he was thinking at that time when he gave his son what seems to be the generous gift of all the land, but he gives his nephew, Kamehameha, the religious kuleana, or responsibility of caring for the war god Kuka'ilimoku. So who do you think wins in the end there? The war god keeper or the land keeper? You guys are really smart. My ka'iloa. So Kamehameha, in a battle which is not long after Kalaniʻopuʻu dies in 1881, in 1882, the Battle of Moku Ohai. And in that battle, Kamehameha defeats his cousin, Ki Vala'o. So it doesn't mean he inherits the whole island of Hawaii at that time, but he did secure for himself immediately the districts of Kona, Kohala, and Hamakua. So the rest of the island, Hilo and Puna, were ruled by another relative of theirs named Keawe Mauhili, and to the south it was Kalaniʻopuʻu's other son, Keokuahu'ula, who ruled in Ka'u. So what Kamehameha needs to do is basically conquer the island of Hawaii in total, and he does this. Hilo is conquered by the son of Kalaniʻopuʻu, Keokuahu'ula. And so what Kamehameha does, and he's told this by his ruling chiefs, is that if he's able to get rid of his cousin from the south, at Keokuahu'ula, that he would rule the island. And if he was going to fulfill the destiny of his conquering all of the islands, he would have to build a great temple at Kauai High, which is North Kona, just getting up into Kohala. And so Pu'ukohola Heiau was actually built during that time. And it said that, now this is in Kauai High, so looking at our PowerPoint here, Kauai High is over here, Upolu Point is up there, and Pololu Valley is way down over here at the other end of Kohala. It is said that all of the stones from that were used to construct that heiau came from Pololu Valley. So the legend goes that there was a human chain of men that stretched 10 miles from Pololu all the way to Kauai High, passing stones one by one from the valley to Kauai High to construct that heiau. He then orders one of his ali'i advisors, Keaweaheulu, Kamehameha says, you go down to Ka'u and you bring up my cousin, Keokuahu'ula. We're going to invite him to the dedication of the heiau. So the ali'i goes down south, invites his relative, Keoua, to come up. They get in canoes. They sail up to Kona. They get into larger canoes, sail north even further to Kauai High, to the beach of Mailekini. And on the way, Keoua then really figures out that he's not the guest of honor. He's going to be the sacrifice at the heiau. And long story short, he's killed upon arrival. And with that, with the securing of the completion of that huge temple, Pu'ukohola, Kamehameha now has secured the island of Hawaii in total. And so that happens in the 1780s. So now he is beginning his campaign to secure the rest of the islands. And for many generations prior to Kamehameha, there were different groupings of islands that were connected. So Hawaii and Maui were oftentimes ruled together because those ali'i were back and forth in possession of those lands because of warfare and military strategy. So Maui at this time is ruled by Kalanikupule. Kalanikupule is the son of Kahekili, who was the other father of Kamehameha. So they're all related here. And this is, again, mind-boggling in our in our current, our worldview and our values and the things that we talk about today. But in traditional times, it's really, the whole world order was very different. Another thing that makes things really difficult in genealogy among the Hawaiian chiefs is that the men had multiple wives. They all intermarried. There were half brothers, half sisters all over the place, but it was a value and considered very important to really to increase the ohana, or to ho'onui ohana, to increase the family. So in any case, the plan now is for Kamehameha to conquer the island of Maui next, and we're now in the year 1792. So in 1792, Kamehameha launches his Peleleu fleet of canoes, and these are long, narrow war canoes that flew across the water, and they were described as malolo. And malolo are flying fish that kind of like leap out of the water and fly. So they were considered to be as swift as a malolo flying fish. And so the legend goes is that, and now we're in 1792, so there's already Western intervention in Hawaii. There are sea captains who are deciding which chief they're going to favor, providing gunpowder to one side and guns and cannons to both sides. And it was really an unusual time of blending of technologies from the West and from Hawaii itself. But Kamehameha's fleet now, in our PowerPoint, we're moving over to the island of Maui, and we see the head of Maui and then the body of Maui. So Kamehameha is coming and landing his canoes on the west side of Maui, from Olovalu all the way down to Kihei. Anybody been to Maui? Been to Kihei, down over there? If you can imagine 1,000 war canoes with 10 to 12 men per canoe, and their women went along with them as well. So wives or the women went along with the men in warfare to watch out for them and to feed them along the way too. If you can imagine an army of thousands of men, they have to be fed, they have to be taken care of, and it was very, very much planned in great detail. So they land the canoes over there, and they are now going to attack the army of Kalani Kupule on the island of Maui. So Kamehameha orders that when the canoes land on the beach, they're going to unlash them. So we see a small little fishing canoe that's here at NMAIA in the front foyer area there. But you see how the Hawaiian canoes are built with outriggers. And so the two booms that go from the hull of the canoe are called yako, and then the floater at the end of the two yako is called an ama, which is the outrigger, to unlash the canoes there. And he says to unlash the canoes so that there's no way they're going to be able to flee if they are not successful. And so he tells his warriors, and he calls out to them, and I'm going to ask you to repeat after me. The words are two words, I and mua. So let's say the word I mua. Okay, say it like you're in war. I mua. Okay, I mua means to move forward. And who he's talking to are the younger warriors and their companions, na poki'i. So he says, I mua e na poki'i. So, I mua e na poki'i. Let's try that. I mua e na poki'i. One more time, we'll just say it. I mua e na poki'i. Now let's exclaim it. Move forward, my younger brothers and sisters. Let's say it. I mua e na poki'i. Let's try that. I mua e na poki'i. And he further continues by saying the entire phrase, which has since become the foundation of the motto of Kamehameha schools today, which is I mua Kamehameha. I mua e nā poki'i a inu I ka wai awa a ohe hope e ho'i mai ai. Move forward, my younger brothers and sisters, and drink of the bitter waters, for there's no turning back. That was the reason for his saying to unlash the canoes. They weren't going to leave without getting their job done. And so in Hawaiian war style, which is called ho'ouka kaua. Kaua means battle in particular. Ho'ouka means to drive into the uplands. And so in a flanking kind of style across the body of central Maui, they're able to snare the huge army of Kalani Kupule and push them up and up and up, all the way towards past Kahului, where the airport is today, never have airport that time. Past Kahului, and you're going more Mauka up to Wailuku, which has great restaurants today, but they didn't have any restaurants during that time. And right above Wailuku Valley is Iao, and Iao State Park today is called Kepanivai State Park, is where Kamehameha's army from Hawaii Island was able to like dragnet and push up that Kalani Kupule's Maui army up to the top of the valley, and he slaughtered them. And the thousands of warriors that were killed in that battle gave the battle its name, Kepanivai o Iao, which means the dammed waters of Iao. I don't mean dam like, oh, damn. I mean dam like, like otters with twigs and branches across the river. But these are now bodies that are lying across the Iao stream and causing the water to rise and flow red out to the sea over these defeated warriors. And so Kepanivai o Iao was that battle in 1792. In 1795, Kamehameha continues on his conquest to capture the island of Oahu. But Oahu had been captured earlier by Kalani Kupule's father, Kahekili, who was also Kamehameha's other father. So Oahu, basically, when they were conquered in 1795, really Kamehameha was conquering the island of Maui, who was kind of there already. So in 1795, Kamehameha, again with his Peleleu fleet of canoes, and they land all the way from Waialae, which is, how many of you have been to Oahu? I think we had a bunch of people there. Well, not far from Kahala Mall, and the Kahala Resort and Hotel, which is down by the beach, all the way around Le'ahi, which we also know as Diamond Head today, all the way up to Waikiki and to Kalia, where the Hilton Hawaiian Village is located today. But as we know, there was no Hilton Hawaiian Village in those days. And they land their fleets of canoe, their canoe fleet there. They had prior to that gone to decoy so that the army of Oahu was nowhere in that area. They were elsewhere. And so they land there. They're able to actually stay the night in Waikiki, not at a hotel, but in the coconut grove of Helumoa and other areas there in Waikiki. And the following day, they're also able to, in that same strategy, in that kind of a dragnet surrounding of the Oahu army, who was called into Honolulu, called into Waikiki, and then put up to Nu'uanu Valley. That's another example of ho'ouka kaua, ho'ouka to cause to go inland and kaua to battle. Pushed up Nu'uanu Valley, and both sides, interestingly, you'll see paintings and historical images, sketches and what have you that show firearms that are called pu and pu kuniahi, which are considered cannons, and both sides had cannons, because now, 1795, the Battle of Nu'uanu is 17 years after Captain James Cook. How old was Kamehameha in 1795? 37. You guys are good. You guys are really good. 20 at the time of Captain Cook's arrival. This is 17 years later in 1795. And literally pushed the Oahu/Maui army on Oahu right up to Nu'uanu Valley. And if you've been there and you see the Pali lookout, there is no back of the valley of Nu'uanu. It just drops into this sheer cliff about 1,000 feet straight down. And so that battle is known as Leleaka Anai. And Lele means to fly, and Anai are mullet. So it's like the flight of the mullet. It was like the losers really were flying over the cliffs like they were fish jumping in the ocean. And so, long story short, 1795, and when Oahu was secured by Kamehameha, who now has his entire island of Hawaii, the island of Maui, which kind of comes together with Molokai, Lanai, Kaho'olawe, they're all a part of that network, and then now the island of Oahu, Kamehameha he's really secured the Hawaiian kingdom. Several attempts, 3 attempts to get to Kauai failed because of the weather and the storms between Oahu and Kauai to the west. But by diplomatic agreement with the king of Kauai and Ni'ihau named Ka'umuali'i, Kamehameha was able, by 1810, to have those islands join in to the Kingdom of Hawaii, which he established then under Kamehameha. The rest of it is history. We're at the end of our time here, but just to quickly fast forward, two of Kamehameha's sons become Kamehameha II and III, and they are named Kalani Kualiholiho and Kau'i Keauli. Two of Kamehameha's grandsons, the first is Alexander Liholiho Iolani, becomes Kamehameha IV. Lot Kapuaiwa becomes Kamehameha V. Another relative, Lunalilo, is the next ruler. And then two more relatives from another branch of the family, David La'amea Kalakaua and Lili'u Kamakaeha, become the 7th and the 8th rulers of the Hawaiian Kingdom that extended all the way until the overthrow by American military forces in 1893. Hawaii is annexed in 1897, 1898, becomes a territory shortly thereafter. And at that time, Hawaii is sort of integrating itself into American society. Our own ali'i, our own royal family member, Prince Jonah Kuhio Kalanianaole, becomes a delegate to Congress and works right here at the nation's capital from 1902 until his death in 1922. So again, 20 years of Hawaiian presence in the United States Congress. Very diplomatic, a non-voting member as a territorial representative, but he was very, very influential in securing many of the native rights that Hawaiians enjoy today in Hawaii. So that, in a 35-minute nutshell, is kind of the story of Kamehameha. When we think about the brutal, the violence of those battles that he had to do, and that was the prophecy and his advisors, his kahuna, his Western foreign advisors who helped him along the way as well, in order to achieve solidarity and peace among all the islands. As soon as the battles were complete, he set aside his war god Ku Ka'ilimoku and became a worshiper of Lono, and Lono is a god of peace and productivity. He helps to rebuild what was broken down during the battles. He sets aside his own sacred kapu or taboo in order that he's able to help the people progress, to rebuild the farms, to rebuild the taro patches, the taro fields, to bring prosperity to Hawaii. Ano laila, therefore, e ia wau makapalena pau, makapau ana o keia ha'i o lelo. I'm here at the end of this speech. Ina he mau ni nau, hiki no ke ni nau mai. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer a couple of questions. And we have our wandering Mike in the audience here.
Thank you very much for that very strong lineage talk. But can you tell us a moment how he dies, how he gets killed?
He dies really of old age. He goes back after conquering Oahu many years later. At about 1811, 1812, he goes back to the island of his birth, and he settles in a place in Kailua, Kona, called Kamakahonu, which is the current site of the King Kamehameha Hotel, which, as we know, wasn't there at that time. So he dies of old age. He dies in May of 1819 in the 30 day or 30 moon cycle of the moon. He dies on the night of Hoku, and Hoku is the night before Mahealani, which is a full moon night. So it's said that his spirit at that night flew towards the Hoku moon, which gave rise to another ali'i name, Lele Yohoku, which means flying towards the Hoku moon, referring to his spirit that night. So there was no illness. I think he had both the best of Western medical opinions, his own Hawaiian kahuna la'au lapa'au, or traditional healers. It was just his time. Yeah.
Question
yes.
over.
Oh,
sorry. Question right up front here, and then you.
Go ahead.
You've explained so beautifully this history. I'm curious, his great legacy is uniting the kingdom. Could you speak a moment about then what precedes with the transformation into a constitutional monarchy?
That was during the reign of his son, Kamehameha III. Kamehameha III, his son, very young son, ruled the longest of all the rulers of the 8 rulers of the Hawaiian Kingdom. He does create a constitutional monarchy. which was a very new thing in the world. He really gave civil rights and liberties to all people who lived in Hawaii. The process of becoming a naturalized citizen, having the people really have a large say in what was done. So the constitutional monarchy was created by him. He also created the first board of education in the history of the world. There was an island-wide system of education. And as I mentioned in the presentation yesterday, he had a saying which was "Heau puni pala pala ko'u," which means mine will be a government of literacy. In other parts of the world, United States and Europe in particular, education was a privilege for the privileged. If you were a farmer or a laborer, you weren't literate for the most part. It was not provided. Education was not provided for you. So by the third quarter of the 19th century, so the 1870s, 80s, 90s, Hawaii was considered the most literate country in the world because everybody had access to education. Everybody could read and write. Our histories were written down then by the historians after the missionaries had come and put the previously oral tradition passed on. Stories and histories into written form, translating the Bible into Hawaiian. So Hawaiians were really very good at that. So those are the innovations of Kamehameha III, constitutional monarchy, board of education, and high level of literacy in the kingdom. Yeah.
Hi, thank you for speaking to kind of the after the wars, the work he did politically and to rebuild. Were there like tensions among the different people from the different islands? And if so, how long did that last? Are there still any tensions based on this kind of history?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there were tensions because and a lot of the tensions had to do with genealogies. So Hawaiian language newspapers between 1836, the first newspaper, Kalama Hawaii, all the way until World War II, there were 200 Hawaiian language newspapers. And one of the foremost papers was called Kanupepa Ku'oko'a. And in any case, there would be arguments in the newspaper by different families on genealogy in particular. Who had the right to rule? Who had the right to the crown lands? Kamehameha should not have had the right. He was not really a son of Keoua and all those kinds of things. So I think if there was tension, and that kind of thing still exists today. I mean, Hawaiians, you get them in a room, they will hold their ground on anything, and they'll let you know that their thoughts are the right thoughts, are the correct thoughts. So, but as far as other factions, there's something about the island of Kauai that continues to have this sort of sense of independence because Kamehameha did not conquer them. So there are political groups from Kauai today who still claim that they are sovereign from the rest of Hawaii. So all of those things are natural human reactions to history, but none of us of this generation were here in any previous generation. So to go back 100 or 200 years and make claims, it's really difficult to do, but if anybody can do it, we can. Any other questions? I want to thank you again for the honor of the Smithsonian to invite us to honor our Ali'i Kamehameha the Great on this occasion of commemorating the 200th anniversary of his passing. But the good news is, as you can see, the Hawaiian culture is alive and well. Hawaiian language has exploded in Hawaii. There's a language learning app called Duolingo that teaches languages from all over the world. So just in October, this past October, there were 85 world languages in this smartphone computer app called Duolingo. And that day in October, language 86 and 87, and they were Olelo Hawaii, Hawaiian language, and Navajo were added to that list. Right now, there are more than 400,000 people actively learning Olelo Hawaii, and it is the most popular language of all 87 languages in the history of that app. Hawaiian language is just absolutely intriguing and of great interest to many people around the world. But specific language learners, including the young children in Hawaiian language immersion programs at the private Hawaiian language preschools, have brought up the number of a nearly extinct language to at least 25 to 30,000 people in Hawaii today speaking Hawaiian. So I'm lucky. When I went to Kamehameha schools, I studied Japanese. You know, yonnen Nihongo benkyou shimashita. I studied Japanese for 4 years. I can still remember how to say that. Watashi no namae wa Boido desu. My name is Boyd. That's about all I got. I can order a beer and find a train in Japan, but I was able instead to embrace Olelo Hawaii because it is relevant. You go to Hawaii, you're surrounded by Hawaiian language everywhere. You hear the music, you see place names, street names, and people have this kind of a wall in front of them because they're not really sure what it means, but they know it's Hawaiian, even in music and in songs and that sort of thing. But the more you learn, the weaker those walls get, and we're very inclusive with language learning for everyone to learn, as everyone did in the time of Kamehameha. So I'm not even sure what the question was, but I hope you found an answer in there somewhere. Okay, mahalo anui, aloha.